Hello guys, my name is Desmond and I welcome you to my lesson for today, where we will be looking at your mathematics. As you can see over there, functions is what we will be looking at in today's lesson. So ladies and gentlemen, please do allow me to say it is very much important that I say it is very, very much important, because what I'm about to say, it's massively, massive. Hey, massively important, ladies and gentlemen, that I say a day without learning something new, it's a day wasted. By so saying, good people, please do make sure that by the end of each and every lesson that I conduct, you learn something new. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, over there. So this is what we are going to do in today's lesson. I'm pretty much sure that you guys did see the question paper that I sent in the group. So what I'm going to do is to quickly take you through an interpretation of what we are given there. Once that is done, I'm going to take you through the given statement, and then from there we look at the questions. So remember guys, for those of you who are attending my lesson for the very first time, a very warm welcome, and please be aware that we have done introduction on functions, of which if you need to catch up, that lesson has been recorded. I would advise you to catch up. But just so that no one feels left behind, I'm just going to quickly do a very short summarized introduction on functions, and I'll just emphasize on the information that we will need in order to answer this question. So momentarily forget about that function. Assume that is not there. So under functions, this is what you need to remember. You might not need to write everything because this lesson is being recorded and I'm going to post it tomorrow. So remember guys, we said when we look at functions, we are looking at number one, a straight a line. Number two, we said a parabola. Number three, we talked about hyperbola. I'm pretty much sure that you guys still remember that the last one was exponential. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, over there. And most importantly, this is what we said. Maybe let me do these. Let me quickly do these so that you guys will have an idea of what I'm talking about. Under the first one being a straight line, I gave you some very important tips to say. Remember, we sketch a function on a Cartesian plane. What is a Cartesian plane? A Cartesian plane is this thing that has what we call the x-axis and the y-axis. And at that point, it's called the origin. That is why sometimes they'll just put an O there. So this is what we call a Cartesian plane that has quarter number 1, quarter number 2, quarter number 3, quarter number 4, which we call the quadrants. So that means this is quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. So since this is the first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, fourth quadrant, if you remember, we said if you have a straight line ending in the first and the third quadrant at all the times, you are going to have a positive gradient. And also, if you have a straight line ending in the the second and the fourth quadrant, it is going to have a negative gradient. And most importantly, we said we give functions names. For example, this one we can call it a Mafranco, well known as f of x. This one, Bra George, meaning it is g of x. This is so that we can say for this one of Bramafranco, can you see it cuts the y-axis on the positive side of a Cartesian plane, meaning the c value is going to be a positive for that straight line. If you look at this one that is having a negative gradient, can you see where it cuts the y-axis? It's on the negative side of that y-axis, meaning the c value is going to be a negative value. So just to give a general straight line equation, for maybe the graph of f, it's going to be f of x, which is equals to, one thing for sure, you must have a positive gradient, and most importantly, you are going to have a positive c value. That's if you were given a function and they wanted you to determine an equation of that straight line. You should expect a positive m value and a positive c value. For example, it could be positive 2x maybe plus 3, something of that nature. The moment you see yourself determining an equation of that straight line and you find a negative value there, just know you are wrong. You find a negative value there, just know you are wrong. Why? Based on the fact that we say for a straight line ending in the first quadrant and the third quadrant at all the times, positive gradient, positive c value. So quickly, let's talk about that one. So the graph of Mafranco. This is where we are saying you need to expect a negative gradient. So that means it's going to be a negative gradient value, and because it cuts the y-axis on the negative side, that means your c value, it's going to be a negative value. For example, in terms of values, you might be having negative, let's say 3x, maybe a negative 4, something of this nature. What matters the most? Your gradient is going to be negative and your c value, it's going to be negative. So this is all that I've explained to you guys previously when we started with the functions. So that means for a function of that nature, it is going to have a negative gradient, but the c value is going to be a positive c value. And then for this one, it will still have a positive gradient. What makes it to have a positive gradient is for the fact that it ends in the first and the third quadrant. And then the c value, it's based on is it cutting the y-axis above the origin or below the origin. You can see there, that's where you're having a negative value, meaning you will have a positive gradient but a negative c value. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, over there. So you will actually realize that that c value, it actually tells us more about the shift, of which I call it the vertical shift. Vertical means up or down, meaning originally our straight line was actually passing through the origin. So now it no longer passes because of that c value. So that means if you are having positive 2 as your c value, it means your function from the origin is it shifted by 1-2 units upwards. If it's negative 3 as your c value, it means from the origin it is shifted by 1-2-3. Yes, yes. Leslie, be careful, honorable member. So don't click on a button which says screen because we are going to see your personal information. So just join, remain muted, and only unmute if you've got a question. So now that's all that I wanted you guys to be aware of regarding a straight line. So very quickly, I'm going to jump onto a parabola. So I'm just going to remove all of these so that I don't get any interruption in the beginning. So I will give you guys an opportunity to ask questions. But for those of you guys who are attending my lesson for the very first time today, I will encourage you guys to firstly catch up and from there, you will derive some valid questions, of which on our next lesson I'm going to attend to those. But one thing for sure, I'm telling you, if you are familiar with the functions, if you are not doing the functions for the very first time today, if you're not doing maths for the very first time this year, you will fully understand everything that I'm going to explain in this lesson. So, secondly, in summary, let me quickly talk about all that you need to know regarding a parabola. I'm done with a straight line. So now, let's see. Remember, at all the times, we sketch a function on a Cartesian plane. Maybe the origin, we can write it somewhere there. This is what I'm going to say. A parabola has got a standard formula being y is equals to ax squared plus bx plus c. This is the standard formula of a parabola. And a parabola has got two shapes. There's one which is like that, and then there's one which is like that. And in my lesson, we made a conclusion to say we will refer to this as a smiling shape and that as a sad shape. And for you to see that it is a smiling shape, that's when you do that. And then for this one, it's a set shape if you do that. But now, what makes the function to be a smiling or a sad shape? It is because of that a value. The moment you are having a positive a value, it means the mood is positive. That is why our honorable member is smiling there. But now, if you have a negative a value, that means your mood is negative. That is why you are sad. So that means, as an example, we might be having, for example, a f of x for a smiling shape. It could be positive 2x squared. Whatever positive value, doesn't matter whether it's x squared. If it's x squared, you know there's an invisible one there which is positive. That is for a smiling shape. So I've just explained to you the impact of that a on a parabola. So now let's quickly talk about this portion of the function. This is where I was saying it influences the left and right shift. For it to make sense, let me do this. If you've got a sad shape similar to that, can you see this function? It's making a U-turn there. These are the types of functions that you will find in grade 10. But I'm telling you, in grade 11 and grade 12, that's when it gets even more complicated. But it's not that much complicated because we have realized as a result of this b value, it shifts either to the left or to the right. That is why you will see a function making a U-turn in the first quadrant, for example, or a set shape making a U-turn in the second quadrant. Otherwise, if it's a smiling shape, you will see your function making a U-turn in the fourth quadrant, or otherwise making a U-turn in the third quadrant. That's how you know the function has shifted either to the left or to the right. That is the impact of that b value there. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, over there. I'm pretty much sure that I said that positive value, it is as a result of a being positive, meaning we are having a smiling shape. If it was negative, then that would mean the shape was going to be that of a sad, and this is the left or right shift. And then this one, this is for the up and down. Just like I've explained on a straight line to say, this is what you need to know about the vertical shift, or it tells you more about the vertical shift. Maybe let me try to give you guys a similar explanation. So what do I mean by the vertical shift? There you've got your Cartesian plane. So this is what used to happen, Bantu Bagiti. A parabola used to make a U-turn at the origin. But now, because of a vertical shift, that's why it makes a U-turn somewhere up there. Somewhere up there. Can you see? It makes a U-turn there because of that vertical shift. And then because of this, you might find that it has now shifted maybe towards the right or towards the left. So the same explanation goes for a smiling shape. It was initially making a U-turn at the origin, but now because of this C value, you find that it has shifted by whatever units downwards, and to make it complex, maybe shifted again towards the left or towards the right. So that's what I wanted you guys to remember. This is not really an introduction, it's just me trying to recap on what we have learned. Most importantly, maybe let's try to give realistic equations. For example, what I'm saying is y is equals to ax squared plus bx plus c. So for this function, if you had to determine an equation of that, this is what you need to expect. Firstly, a negative a value. For determining an equation, do not worry that much about that. But you need to be aware that here you should expect a positive C value. Why? Because it makes a U-turn. It cuts the y axis on the positive side of the y axis. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, over there. So this one, it is the one that influences the shift of that function. You can see it has shifted towards the right, meaning it makes a U-turn right there in the first quadrant. Something that you guys need to remember is what we call an axis of symmetry. And this is what I said. I won't ask you guys this question again because I remember you've answered it correctly. This is a slice of bread. How are you going to cut this slice of bread such that yourself and your sibling will not fight after it was cut? Obviously, to be fair, you would cut it right in the middle. The question is, why would you cut it right in the middle? It's so that you want this side of the bread to be equal to this side of that slice of bread. So this line that cuts it into two equal halves is what we call an axis of symmetry. I'm pretty much sure that you guys are not hearing that for the first time, and to some of you, you might find that it did not make any sense. So an axis of symmetry, it's a line that cuts whatever into two equal halves. So if you had an orange there and you had to cut it, you can either cut it in that angle as long as this is equals to that, or you can cut it in that angle as long as this is equals to that. You can cut it like that as long as even this slice of bread, it means you can still cut it like that. You can be creative, but just make sure that after cutting it, you don't find your sibling jumping on you, saying you did not cut it equally, and therefore you are now fighting for it. So make sure that you remember that line called axis of symmetry so that you equally cut it into two equal halves. So now, how do we cut our parabola into two equal halves? Good people, you cut it at the turning point. At the turning point of your parabola, that's where you cut it into two equal halves. For example, if you had that one, if they said a equation of axis of symmetry, you know this is where it cuts that into two equal halves. So the question is, it cuts the x-axis at what value. If, for example, you are having 1, 2, then you're just going an equation of the axis of symmetry is just x is equals to 2. That's why it's given 1 mark. It's because they want you to find the x value at the turning point, and that x value is your equation of a axis of symmetry. So that means this portion of the function is exactly equals to that portion of that. So that means this is an axis of symmetry. So where do you find an axis of symmetry? Do you find it on a straight line, exponential, hyperbola, and where else? So you only find it there and also there. So if you remember on our previous lesson, we did discuss how it looks like for a hyperbola, and I think we also went through an exponential type of a function. So for today's lesson, I will just limit the information to those two types of functions because we need that information in order to start solving that exam paper. So now I'm just going to remove all of this and ask you guys, in case if you got all that info, or is there someone who's got a question before we start answering our questions for today? I'm pretty much sure that I was not breaking, all was clear from my side. So now anyone who's got a question before we start answering the questions? Remember, guys, in case if there are no questions, you just comment say no question so that I'm aware that you got the message from my side. I think I heard Hamisa saying no question. I'm well aware that Hamisa, I think she's attending this type of a lesson for the 50th time. She's just waiting for us to start with the questions. But what I like about honorable members such as Hamisa is the fact that they do understand that not everyone is on the same page. So they still do attend and wait until we get to the questions, knowingly that they also went through the same path. So, guys, you do confirm that you've got no questions, and we can now start answering the questions. Okay, so let's quickly do an interpretation of what we are given there. This is what I'm seeing. I see a Cartesian plane there having the x and the y axis, and I also see the origin. That's where you start analyzing a given function. So the question is, how many functions are you seeing there? Is it 3 functions, 2, or 7 functions? Me, I'm seeing 2 functions, and I can see that one, which is a parabola, and most importantly, it's a Z shape. This is how it looks like. So it's a set shape, and again it has shifted towards the left because it's making a U-turn in the second quadrant. Okay, and also they call that one the function of France. So that means examiner who participated in questioning this, his name was France. And guess what? His friend Grigory was there, and he said, okay, I'm just going to include a straight line, and I'm going to ask questions based on a straight line. And this function of a straight line, I'm going to name it a G because my name is Grigory. So let's see. Now, a lot of things are happening there. Remember, guys, this is a hand drawn function, so it's not accurate based on that fact that it's a hand drawn function. So I will refer to that function that I sent in the group for the purpose of explaining. So hey guys, I'm seeing an angle there. It seems like kusa so shuba bantu bakithi i-angle ikhona lapho. So now I think that's all, but most importantly, there's this point there. I'm pretty much sure examiner is going to ask something based on that point called point P. So that's how you quickly interpret a given function. So now we are at that stage where we are going to look at the questions. Maybe let me quickly try to do this. I'm just not sure if it's going to be blurry when I bring this. So I'm not sure if you guys can see, but remember, guys, that's why I say if you've got two devices, make sure you use the other one to watch this lesson and the other one to read the question paper. So quickly, I'll just read through that given statement. It says, the sketch below shows the graphs of f of x, which is equals to, hey, can you guys see we are having a negative a value because it's a said shape. A negative 2x squared minus 5x plus 3. Hey, it's a plus because that function has shifted by 3 units upwards. And g of x, which is equals to ax plus q. Can you see? That means your gradient is represented by letter A and your vertical shift is represented by letter Q, meaning you are not talking about M and C, but you know that those refers to one and the same thing. Most importantly, the angle of inclination of graph F is 135 degrees in the direction of the positive x-axis. P is the point of intersection of F and G, such that G is a tangent of the graph of F at P. This is what I'm going to do very quickly. I'm just going to scrutinize that given statement. I'm pretty much sure that we've got some big words there that needs to be quickly clarified. We were told that the sketch below shows the graphs of number 1, f of x, which is equals to negative 2x minus 5x plus 3. And again, g of x, which is equals to ax plus q. Listen very carefully. They are saying the angle of inclination of G is 135 degrees in the direction of the positive x-axis. So this is what that statement means. I just want you guys to notice something which is a mistake there on this question paper. Not necessarily a mistake, but it's just something which they did it incorrectly. This thing is actually an arrow which does that. I'm just going to quickly sketch it there. So if you can see, we've got a straight line there, which is for G, and they are saying we're having 135 degrees there. So this is what they were trying to do there. That's what is meant by this angle of inclination of G. It's 135 degrees. When they say in the positive direction of the x-axis, they're simply saying starting from there in that direction. Why did they have to say that? It's because if they did not say, we can still have that angle in this direction. So they had to make it clear you can still have that in that direction. They had to make it clear to say an angle of inclination number 1, and most importantly in the positive direction. That's what is meant by that statement. Another thing that I want you guys to be aware of, they are saying P is a point of intersection of F and G. what exactly are they talking about there? The word point of intersection, it simply means that where the two whatever meets, or where the two whatever touch. So we are having that, you are also having a straight line. So at that point there, and they call it that point P, that is where G of x is equals to f of x, or you can say where f of x is equals to g of x. That is where the function of graph number 1 is equals to the function of graph number 2. At this point, they are equal, meaning when they say they are equal, it means they share the same x value and they share the same y value. So that means at that point P, whatever the x value is and whatever the y value is, it is actually for G, and again it is for F. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, over there. That's what is meant by point of intersection of F and G. Secondly, not necessarily secondly, but lastly, what I want you guys to be aware of is that word they've spoken about, which is a tangent. To make it even easier, when we talk about a tangent, we talk about that line that cuts a shape only once. Can you see? I've got a circle and I've got a line, and that line, it touches that circle at one point or once. So that means this line, what is it? It's a tangent to that circle at that point. But if you have something similar to that, can you see? It touches there and there. So it is no longer a tangent. You might find that maybe it's what we call a chord. But don't worry that much about that. You will get to varsity and you will learn more about those. So now, when we talk about a tangent, it's a straight line, or that line that touches whatever only at one point. So here, that means this is what we are having. Can you see? We have a straight line. So that means this straight line, it touches a parabola only at one point, of which that point is called point P. So that's all that I wanted you guys to be aware of before we start answering our questions for today. So that was just a quick summary, just to remind you of what we have done when we started with the functions. So now I'm about to start with answering the questions. But let me just quickly see who's on the line. I see Sinesetu is there. We have Bokamoso Mohapi. Charlotte is also there. Notando. Hey, nibaningi namhlanje bantu bakithi nibaningi. I see also Leslie is there, Ntabiseng Keta is there. But wait, guys, the tool is, are you sure you understand what I've been talking about there? Kucho Tobejani, are you sure, honorable member, that I'm not losing you there? Are we still together? Bantu bakithi. Silence in court. I'm just not sure if my message is still delivering, but I'll just wait for a few seconds. Someone is saying something. I couldn't hear that, honorable member. Can you maybe come again?
The line of inclination.
You need a re-explanation on the line of inclination.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, let's say on a Cartesian plane, if you have a straight line similar to that, the angle formed between the x-axis and that line, which could be a straight line of G. You have two angles that you can talk about. There is that one, and there is also that one. And if you remember, we can maybe call this angle A and then that one angle B. What you know is that because you're having a straight line and then you are having a line there, this angle, when you add it with that angle, it has to be 180. So you just need to always remember that on a straight line, there will always be an angle of inclination. So that means, for example, maybe on this straight line, on that straight line, the angle formed, you don't form it here along the y-axis, but you form it there along the x-axis. So it's whatever angle that you might be having. So this one, that angle, you can see it passes 90 degrees and then it ends there. So that angle is 35 degrees. So it's an angle of inclination. I'm pretty much sure that when we do analytical geometry, you will have a better understanding of that. If you remember, in physical sciences, we call this type of a stiffness inclination. So that's where the word comes from, this line being an incline. And then now when there is an angle involved, that's why they are going to specify to say this is the angle of inclination in the positive direction of the x-axis. I'm not sure, honorable member, with what I've said, the quasis, have I at least tried to answer your question there, or your request to re-explain?
Answered it, sir.
Okay. So now let's try to have a look at our very first question, which says, calculate the coordinates of the turning point of the graph of f. Yes, I might need to maybe let me do this because I'm not very much happy with what I drew there. But you guys need to be aware that they are actually looking at the point of the turning point. Maybe let me just try and redraw that portion at the top. So that function is actually something similar to that. I will just exaggerate it so that it makes sense. So the point, which is point P, is that point there, and the turning point is somewhere there. Even though it looks like that straight line of mine is touching that 2 times, but that point P is actually somewhere there, and the turning point is somewhere there. So that means what examiner wants you to calculate, it's actually the turning points, which is that value there at where the function makes a U-turn. And at that point, it is not at that point of P. I hope you guys understand that. So now the question is, how can we possibly determine the coordinates of point of the turning point? This is what I want to make you guys aware, to say when we talk about the turning points, especially the coordinates, that means your final answer should be in that format. This is the only way, not necessarily the only way, but this is the expected way of you representing your final answer as the coordinates, where you give the x value and the y value. So I'm not sure if there's any one of you guys who would like to give it a try, just to explain how to work it out. Otherwise, if you've got no idea, let me know so that I will work it out.
Hello.
Yes. Who's speaking?
Can I try it?
Yes, give it a try, honorable member. Who's speaking? Is it Moleboge? Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Moleboge, go
From
for
there,
it.
I think I would use the formula of x is equals to negative b over 2a.
Okay. Bopa. Moleboge, do you fully understand where this formula comes from?
Do I?
Do you still remember, or do you know where this formula comes from?
Yes, I remember. You showed us.
Okay, 100%. So, you are 100% correct. This is what you are going to use in order to determine the x value of the turning point. Maybe, Moleboge, I'm very much tempted to do this thing. Please do allow me to say, when you calculate the turning points, for you to get the x value of the turning point, you are going to use this formula that you talked about, which is negative b over 2a. And for you to find the corresponding y value, of which in this case we're dealing with the graph of f. So that means you're going to say f of negative b over 2a. Sometimes you might be seeing this and not being able to interpret it. What it means, it simply means that Moleboge said you are going to use this formula to calculate the x value. Let's say you get 2 as your x value. That means you take that x value of 2 and you substitute it on that equation of f where you see x. So that means you are going to calculate f of 2, which is equals to what? 2, negative 2 into 2 squared minus 5 into 2 plus 3. That's if your x value of the turning point is 2. I was just giving an example there. I'm pretty much sure that Moleboge can guess to say our x value, it's going to be a negative x value. Moleboge, maybe continue, honorable member. What am I writing there? Okay, you said I should say x is equals to negative b over 2a. Then, what do I do? I'm not sure if Moleboge is still there. But anyone to continue from where she left off?
Substitute the negative 5x and the 2
Yes. Yes. So we do have the b value, we do have the a value from our general formula or the equation of that. So that means we're having negative into what is b? Is it not negative 5 over what is a? Is it not negative 2? So can you see? You can now say that times that, I think it gives 4. That negatives cancels with that, and we end up having negative 5 over 4. Is that what you guys are getting there for the x value?
Yes,
I
that's what I
think
got.
so.
It's negative 5 over 4.
Yes. So can you see? What you're going to do is to take that and substitute it there, meaning you are then going to say f of negative 5 over 4. So it's more like you're saying where you see x on the function of f, you substitute that. So what are you guys getting when you substitute that? I think it's going to be negative 2 into negative 5 over 4 close squared. You have minus 5 into negative 5 over 4, you close, you plus by 3. This is where examiner is going to catch you in case if you're not careful with punching the information on the calculator. So let's see. I'm going to have negative 2 into a negative over 5 over 4. You close, you square, you minus 5 into negative 5 over 4. You close, you plus 3. And I'm getting 49 over 8. Am I the only one who's getting 49 over 8? Libandla la kaNkulunkulu. Are you guys still punching there? So that means the x value we got that. And then the y value, this is what I'm getting. I'm just waiting for you guys to confirm in case if I did not make a mistake. Mzozozo, lapho Eastern Cape, honorable member, otholani lapho Mzozozo? Are you sure you are not watching the Queen there? Mzozozo, uthulile kudala mina nawe sikhuluma. Kudala mina nawe sikhulumile Mzozozo. Kwenze njani lapha?
Bengishilo network sengilahlekile. Bengihanjelwe network.
Oh, key network. But okay. Do you need a re-explanation somewhere, Mzozozo? Or are you also punching that side? Let's see. Charlotte, what are you getting there, honorable member? Did I calculate correctly there? Rwandiswa.
So I don't understand.
Yes, you have calculated correctly.
Okay. Kwazi, what were you saying there, honorable member? Kwazi went out. I think Kwazi will be back. So,
Saying that I don't understand why.
hey, Kwazi is whispering. The Makwazis, what are you saying there? Can you speak louder?
So I don't understand how you got the y value.
The y value, so this is the x value. Then you take this x value and substitute it into that equation, which is f of negative 5/4. So that means you're going to say negative 2 into where you see x, you put that x value there. The Makwazis, can you see ukuthi siyithole kanjani le nto le? Can you see? So Moleboge says if you punch all of that on your calculator, it gives you 49/8. So there are two things. It's either you punched it incorrectly or you were not aware of how you get that y value. I'm about to make a conclusion to say the moment you see yourself using this formula, just know that to get the y value, whatever x value that you get when you use this formula, you substitute it there. That's it. Does it make sense, the Makwazis, in terms of how you find that y value there? Are you happy there with that one?
It makes sense now. It's much clearer.
Okay, 100%. So now I'm going to remove all of this and then we move on to the next question. Remember, guys, this lesson is being recorded and you can still catch up in case if you come across some challenges on our next lesson. We will discuss that. So I still remember that on Saturday you guys wrote your test. We might do corrections over the weekend. So I just wanted to make sure that I cover this part of functions in preparation for your test on Saturday. So on Saturday, I think as always 6:30, that's when you'll be writing your test on functions. And then from there, we'll be moving on to a new chapter. So let's see. Calculate the coordinates of P, the point of intersection, the point of contact between B and A. What am I saying? Hey, guys, what am I smoking? 5.2. Calculate the coordinates of P, the point of contact between F and G. They want you to calculate the coordinates of point P. So that means in the end, you must say P, that, and that. And at that point P, that's where F and G intersect. Anyone who would like to suggest how can we possibly work out that type of a problem? I'm telling you guys, if you can master this question, it might come in a different way. Maybe having a straight line in that direction, you will still get it correctly. Only if you will understand how it's being done, not you understanding how I'm going to do it. It's two different things. It's either you can understand how it's done or you can understand what I've done. Anyone who'd like to suggest something there? And I'm sure we have done a similar question before.
No, can I try it as well? I'm trying.
Yeah. Go for it, honorable member.
Because they are touching, I believe f of x and g of x, at that point, they are equal to each other. So, so I would say f of x is equals to g of x. I would equate the two
Functions.
two functions. Yes.
Okay, so that means that's where negative 2x squared minus 5x plus 3, it is actually equals to that one being ax squared plus q. Hey, your statement is correct, but it seems like kuzoba nenkinkanyana lapho. Angazi ukuthi uyayibona le nkinka sibhekene nayo Moleboge.
No, I see, but that's how I was going to go about it. My only thing out those other side, I'm having alphabets. I don't have numbers, but that's how I was going to go about it.
Hey, imagine you are in exam, honorable member. I'm just imagining you saying, hey, yeah, this is how I was going to go about it. But now, what were you going to do if you were in exam, honorable member? Inzimanyana, ne?
And that angle of incline, it's in that line, isn't it? It's in the ax plus q, isn't it?
Yes, it's for this g of x.
Yes, I'm saying the angle of incline.
Yes, it is still along that line. It still refers to that line that is touching at that point P. Yes, please, honorable member, give it a try. Just give it a try, and we'll see how far we can go with that.
Since f of x is equals to g of x, by finding the values of g of x, we could use the point P, I mean the turning point, to substitute where it touches the point. We can use the turning point to kind of substitute.
Wait, I think honorable member is onto something there. Maybe as you speak, let me write what you are saying there, honorable member. Let's see. What did you say there, honorable member? You were saying something very much important. What did you say there? But wait,
So
who's speaking? Oh, it's Kwazi. Okay. Kwazi, yes. What were you saying there?
I was saying, since f of x is equals to g of x, is it possible that we can use the turning point of f of x to substitute one of those values to the g of x?
Oh, no. Hey, that one, remember that straight line, it's like it actually goes like that. This is that point P, and the turning point, can you see where the turning point, it's a bit far. It's more like this turning point, we might not be able to use it to get the coordinates of P. But I'm very, 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 very much happy that you gave your input on that. Maybe let me quickly try to explain something. This is what I meant when I was talking about an understanding. The reason why I actually picked this question is because I just wanted to explain this, because this is what I know that it might come and it might confuse you guys. I'm not sure if you guys remember that if we are having maybe a parabola similar to that, do you guys still remember me saying, if you have a straight line similar to that, at that point where they touch, do you not guys remember me saying, if this is F and this is G, at that point, the gradient of the graph of F is equals to the gradient of G. I'm not sure if you guys remember me saying something of that nature. Do you guys not remember, Bantu Bagiti?
Now it clicks.
Someone is saying something. I couldn't hear that. You say you don't remember, ne?
Saying now it clicks. Now I
Yes.
remember.
Yes. So it is in these cases where you need to always remember that. In which instances do you need to remember that? That's if, for example, somehow you've got a straight line touching a parabola once or at one point, or they say it's a tangent. The moment you start seeing that, remember that information. But in instances where you might be having something similar to that and you have that, you might not need to remember what I'm saying you should remember in this case. So now the question is, do you guys agree that if we can find the gradient of that line, it is the gradient at every point along that straight line, including at this point where they touch? Meaning, if we can use maybe a straight line or that one, if possible, to find the gradient at this point, if we find it to be 2, then it means the gradient at this point is 2. We can therefore somehow use that info to get the x value and take that x value and substitute it either on F or G in order to find the corresponding y value. And that's how you get the coordinates of a P. Let me maybe do it so that it will make sense when I do it. Let's see. Moleboge, you were 100% correct in saying that. Then you realize that it won't work because you are dealing with letters on this side. So that is why you now need to remember that. So the moment you realize what you know does not work, it means that there is another method that you need to apply. And I'm telling you, if you do not attend all my lessons, you might miss that information. So just remember to always not to miss my lessons. And most importantly, guys, if you are in grade 12, if you are upgrading, also attend my grade 11 classes, because it's not about how to solve for these questions, but it's about this kind of information where I expose you to different types of possible ways of solving problems. This is what you guys are going to learn. The Makwazis. Remember to mute your mic, honorable member. So this is what I'm going to tell you guys, of which I would like if you could always remember this. It will ring a bell when we start doing analytical geometry. They say the gradient that you know of a straight line, it has a formula where they say it's equals to change in x over change in y. In short, change means y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Something that you might not be aware of is that a gradient again is the same as tan theta. So it's more like mzozozo. If you can't remember this based on our last year's lesson, if you can't remember that the gradient, it's actually the same as a tan angle. If you remember the ratio for tan, the ratio for tan, the ratio for tan angle, we're saying it's a y over x. So can you see y at the top, and then x at the bottom? So this is the equation of the gradient of a straight line in a form of a trigonometric ratio. So with you being aware of this information, so that means the gradient of a straight line of G in that case, it can be equated to tan angle. Otherwise, it can be equated to y2 minus y1 x2 minus x1. It all depends on what information you have. Do you have two coordinates that you can use to substitute there, or do you have an angle that you can use to substitute there? It seems like I've got an angle, which is what? Which is 135 degrees. Here comes a question. Are we expecting a positive gradient or a negative gradient? That is my question. And why? Are we expecting a positive gradient or a negative gradient, and why?
We're expecting gradient because it's in quadrant 2 and 4.
Yes, 100%. So that means when you use this formula, you need to expect a negative value. The moment you start finding a positive value, you know you've done a mistake somewhere. So what is tan of 135 degrees?
-1.
It's -1. So that means already we know that the gradient of that is equals to -1. Here comes a question. What is the gradient of a straight line at point P?
It's -1.
Okay, what is the gradient of that point on that straight line? It's -1. What is the gradient at that point?
It's -1.
It's -1. The gradient at that point is -1. At that point is -1. At that point is negative. So that means if you have a straight line similar to that and they tell you the gradient of that is 2, that means the gradient here is 2 at that point. At that point is 2. At that point is 2. So that means at every point along or on that straight line, it is 2. That is why it makes a straight line. So a straight line, it is actually made of dots which are connected and they look like a straight line. So it's more like it's a dots of a gradients of 2. That is why I'm confidently saying at that point, specifically at that point of point P, the gradient is a -1. Someone might be wondering, what exactly are we going to do with this -1? This is what happens. Let's see. We just calculated that the gradient of straight line at that point is -1. But remember, I just indicated to say at point P, that's where the gradient of f it's equals to the gradient of g. So the question now is, maybe let me substitute according to that. So we just calculated the gradient of what is it, g. We calculated the gradient of g to be -1. But now, what is the gradient of f at that point? Anyone who remembers, how do we determine an equation or the formula for the gradient of a parabola? Anyone who still remember how we work it out? Remember, guys, in case of no idea, let me know so that I can explain. No idea, I assume. I'm going to keep it very simple. Moleboge, I'm not sure if you remember me saying this is where you differentiate. I'm not sure if you guys remember.
I
Do you
do
guys not remember this? Yeah, so that means every time when you need to determine an equation of a parabola, not an equation, but the formula for the gradient at any point on that parabola, you differentiate. Someone needs to mute their mics. I'm not sure. Oh, Moleboge, remember to mute your mic,
Yes.
honorable member. I can see, no, I can hear the pods are fighting that side. Are you making the pause to be done? Remember to mute your mic, honorable. So this is what I was saying. You differentiate this. You remember, Hamisa, you were asking where is the word coming from, but I'll just keep it short to say, if you have something similar to that, that's where we say you multiply that. That means you're going to have negative 4x, and then you set that power of 2, you minus it by 1, it becomes an invisible 1. Then if you have a number and a letter, the letter falls away, you just have minus a 5. So this is actually an equation or the formula of the gradient of f at any point. So that means if you want to know the actual value at that point, you need to know the x value, substitute it there. Or if you want to know it there, you will need the x value. So that means this is the general formula for the gradient on that graph of f at every point or at any point that you can think of. But now there is that special point that we know something about, which is this point. What do we know about that point? Do we not know that at this point, the gradient is equals to -1? Why is it -1? It's because that's a point where these two functions touch. So that means you're going to equate both gradients and then you solve for x. The x value that you're going to get, it is actually this x value there, and obviously you're expecting a negative value, so you're going to take this x value and then substitute it into that equation to get the corresponding y value. So maybe let me quickly work it out, and then afterwards I'll take some questions. So you obviously transpose, you are having -4x, which is equals to -1 plus 5. So that means -4x is equals to, what is this? I think this is 4. So you divide by -4 on both sides so that that cancels, and then your x is equals to -1. So that means here the x value of that p is -1. So the trick or the tricky part here is for you to know how to approach that type of a question. It's not really about calculations, because now to finalize, you're just going to say y is equals to -2 into -1 squared minus 5 into -1 plus 3. What are you getting there? I think this gives you what? 1 positive that. So it's more like you have 8 minus 2, which is equals to, what is it? Is it 6? I think it's 6. So that means the y value there is 6. Sure, I think I've lost most of you guys there. I'm not sure if there's anyone who's got a question, guys, based on what I've explained there. Anyone who's got a question? Leslie, are you sure, honorable member? Buddha. I see Pablo is there. Are you guys not being lost? Am I not leaving you behind? Thuli the Tulis. Uthulile lapho. Asikhulume the Matulis. Are you sure I'm not losing you there, honorable member? I feel like it's not everyone who understands. Okay, I got to know. So,
I
does that
understand.
mean you guys have understood completely what I've done there? Okay, this is what happens. In case if your teacher haven't taught you that at school, just wait for it. I can promise you now, you will understand it better than everyone in class. And secondly, if they don't teach you this and you move on to the next chapter, just make sure that you know this, because you will need it at some point. Remember, they may ask this in March, June, or during preparatory, or in December. So you will never know when it's going to come. So don't say because they did not teach it in class, therefore it might not come. As a grade 12 learner, you need to learn or study everything. So just make sure that you fully understand this. And most importantly, it's not our last time doing this type of a question. We will still do it. And when we do it for the second time, that's when it's going to make sense. I can tell you now, you might feel like it's a bit confusing or it's difficult. There's someone who fully understands it. Maybe they forgot that it is this type of a question, but now that they remember, they are now seeing the light. So just to quickly recap, just remember that in case if you are having a hyperbola or a parabola and they say at that point that's where they are equal, you need to remember that at this point, that's where, let's say this is f and this is g. At this point, always remember that that's where the gradient of f is equals to the gradient of g. And for you to get the gradient of f, it's a straight line. You can either get it from that formula. If it's not given, can you see the trick there? So in grade 12, in grade 11, they are going to give it to you straight away, in case if they want to ask you that question. But in grade 12, they don't just easily give it to you. Somehow they try to be tricky, and this is how they can be tricky. Then you need to use that to find it. So if you can't remember that the gradient for a straight line is the same as tan angle, you are dead. So now for this one, in order for you to find a general formula to calculate the gradient of that at any point, that's where you need to remember that you need to differentiate that. Differentiation, we are still going to get to that point. But you can see already there's a question that needs you to differentiate. So that means you need to differentiate is very much easy, guys. If you are having x to the exponent 4, maybe plus x, let's say to the exponent 3, and then plus 2 there. What you do, you take that power, you multiply the coefficient, which is invisible 1. So you are having 4x. Then they say you subtract that same power. Then it's going to be 3. Can you see? Then you take this power, you do the same. You multiply that, that is positive 3x. You subtract that power there, and then it's 3 minus 1, which is 2. Then they say if it's a number, it falls away completely. You don't need to worry about it. Whether it's 1,000, whether it's 1,000,000, whether it's negative value, it falls away completely. So just always remember that. So that means this would be an equation for the gradient at any point. So now we chose that special point because we know something about that point. We know the gradient at that point from the straight line formula to say it's -1. So we equate those two. So Moleboge, can you see? This thing is in two ways. It's either you say at that point, that's where f of x is equals to g of x. Then you realize this can't work. That means you're going to try this one to say that's where the gradient of f is equals to the gradient of g. The question is, can you find this gradient? You look at the straight line. Oh yes, you can use that to find it. Then that means you found it. And then this one, can you find it? Yes, you are given an equation. That means you just need to differentiate, and then you're going to then substitute it there and solve for the x value. That x value that you get, it is this one at that point P. So you use this x value, you substitute into one of the equations. You can't use this one because you don't have that, you don't have that. Even if you have that, because you calculated it, but you don't have that. That's why you can't use this one, and you have to use that one. That was a summary, Bantu Bakiti. Paballo Mukonyana. Are you sure, honorable member? Am I not losing you there? Are you sure you are not sleeping there? Paballo.
I'm not so thank you.
But do you understand, honorable member? Am I not losing you there? Randy
Not so.
Somlondo.
No, I understand. I understand. I now understand. With the g of x
100%.
and the f of x equals to g of f, it was going to be wrong. But with mf,
Yeah.
meaning the gradient is equals to mg, I understand.
100%. So just make sure that you always remember that in case you run out of options. So now, quickly, let's look at that other question, or the last two questions, and then we'll be done for today. I was actually say we are done because this is the most difficult question in this question, of which when I did this lesson, I actually wanted you guys to learn that. So maybe let's quickly wrap up with the last two. Okay, hence or otherwise. Can you see the word hence or otherwise? Determine the equation of a G. So they now want the equation. So because of this word hence, it means whatever that you used previously, you might need to use it to work it out. To work out this question. So what I remember is that g of x generally is y is equals to ax plus q. Based on that word hence, what do you guys think they are referring to? Which is something that we calculated previously and we need to use it on this question.
Isn't it the gradient? Our a
100%.
equals to negative.
100%.
Yes.
Our a is equals to -1. But you remember, we said under a straight line, you need two things in order to determine an equation. You always need two things. What are those things? It's either you have the gradient and one point or one coordinate, or you have 2 points or two coordinates. So what are we having there that we can use to determine that? Number one, we have the gradient. What else do we have, or what else do we know that we can use to determine an equation?
We have a point.
Do we? Which point? What is that point that we have?
We have point P.
100%. Who was speaking there?
Lwandiswa.
The Malwandiswa. You are 100% correct. So we do have point P. What is point P? point P is -1 and 6. So that means, guys, you need to remember that for you to determine an equation of a straight line, you need two things. It could be the gradient. If you already have the gradient, then it's obvious you must have a point. If you don't have the gradient, that means you're going to have two coordinates or 2 points to determine the gradient, and then you use 1 point to determine the other. So that means where we see y, we're going to put that x down. So let's see, y it's equals to negative. If you don't put that -1 inside the brackets, I'm telling you, you're going to see flames. So that by that, you already have +1 plus q. You take this to the other side. What is it? It's going to be 5, which is equals to q. So that means an equation is actually that, and then you still have +5 there. That's how you easily score yourself 2 marks. You can see it's 2 marks. Not that much complicated. I'm not sure. Is it everyone who understands what I've done there, or there's someone who would like a re-explanation on that?
We understand.
So if I'm getting you correctly, so the function of g of x is negative, and it's our gradient. That's why there's negative x plus q. So we substituted the point, or the point P, right?
Yes.
And then we made 6 this our thingy.
Our y.
Our y is our 6, which is our thingy of the yes. Okay, yeah, I understand. So I just wanted to confirm
Yes.
if I'm on the same page.
Yes, you are 100% on the same page as us, honorable member. So it's more like for you to determine an equation of a straight line, you just need to get rid of those and give them or replace them with numerical values. So here we have an invisible one, but you don't write it as an invisible one. Maybe, Moleboge, let me try to explain it to you, honorable member, because you are a Pedi. I'm sure there's a Zulu who's listening, and they are going to understand this when I explain it in Sepedi. So this is you, Moleboge. They say, ugogo uthi hamba uyongithengela isnave. So uyahamba uya esitolweni uyothenga isnave. So this is what happens. Ohlakana le pudi imbuzi eyodwa. Then you come back and they ask you ohlangane nini or uhlangane le ngasipedi. I'm sure, I'm 100% sure, Moleboge, you won't say ke hlakane le one pudi. You're just going to say ke hlakane le pudi. But if it was two pudis, you were going to say ke hlakane le dipudi. Then that's when a question comes to say how many. Then you could say two pudis. So that is why, honorable member, here we just say y is equals to negative. We know there's that invisible one there, of which we don't need to write it. That's why Moleboge doesn't need to say one pudi. She's just saying a pudi. And then the negative, if you guys remember, I said the negative is in most cases where it tells us about the direction. You might find that that negative, it simply says this is the direction in which Moleboge went. That's what the negative says. If it was a positive, then it means this is the direction in which Moleboge went to buy Isney for Ugogo. And she came across one goat. You wouldn't say one goat, you would just say a goat. But if it was more than two, you're going to say is it goats with an S in the end? Then I'm going to say how many goats. Then that's when you're going to specify to say 2, 3, or a million. Hey, not a million. I'm sure one would steal a few there. A million is too much. Okay, Bantu Bagiti, before you start thinking of stealing some, do you guys understand? Can I make a conclusion that is everyone who understand what is going on there, and we wrap up with that last question? Leslie, are you sure? Do you allow me to move on to the last question? No tandem timkulu utulile kaloku. Are we on the same page, guys? I think we are.
On the same page then.
100%. So now, just write down that formula somewhere, but I think you do. Maybe I'll write it there. And I want to explain this last question. It's allocated 1 mark. It means it's supposed to be easy. It's easy, but it's a bit tricky. Easy, but a bit tricky. Easy, but a bit tricky. This is g of x, which is equals to negative x plus 5. We have noticed that. Maybe let me zoom into that and say, remember, we are having that. And maybe let me do this there. To say, this is the point where that graph of g touches the y-axis. And this is the point where y is equals to that 5. If you remember, I said it was passing through the origin and it shifted by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units upwards. So look at that next question. It says, determine the value of d for which the line k of x is equals to negative x plus d will not intersect the graph of f. So examiner is trying to be smart here, guys. The reason why they use letter D is because they don't want to give you an answer to the previous question. So it's more like they're saying whatever value that you get, of which in this case is a 5, and they are calling it D. They're saying for which value of D will not intersect the graph of f. So they're saying what value can you put there, whereby once you've put that value, this graph, the new graph of k, as a result of that new value, will never touch this graph of f. Shucks. This one I can feel it is tricky. I will need to then explain it so that everyone understands. And for me to explain it, maybe Moleboge, are you still there so that we can speak through our engagement?
Yes,
They are going to understand. So this is what they are saying. In which direction can you move this straight line such that it will never touch the graph of f? In which direction? But also remember, direction could be left, right, up, or down. Let's maybe start here. Do you think based on that, are they talking about the left or right direction or the up and down direction?
I think they are speaking about the up and down direction. When you take it high, so to me it's an up and down direction.
Yes, so that means they are not referring to the left and right. And now, in which direction can you shift this such that it won't touch that F?
It up.
Yes, 100% in the upwards direction. So what they want to know is that by how much or what value can you put there such that this new k of x will never touch that. That's where, Moleboge, you're going to say at where d is greater than 5. I'm not sure if you are
Okay.
able to interpret this, Moleboge. So it simply means whatever d value that you substitute there, as long as it is greater than 5,
it will not touch. Yes.
100%.
Yes.
Because this is where it passes through the y-axis, which is at that point of where that is 5. So that means any value above 5, it keeps on going away from that. It will never touch. But anything below 5, if someone then writes d less than 5, it's more like they're saying as it goes down, it will never touch, of which it's a lie. You can see it touches that. And also, for someone who says d is greater or equals to 5, it's more like they're saying starting from 0.5 going up, it won't touch. It's a lie, because starting from 0.5, that's where it touches. But anything above 5, that's where it does not touch and will never touch. So I'm not sure if through my engagement with honorable member everyone understands. Endinako Sifumba. Are you sure, honorable member, you understood what we were explaining there? Leslie, did you get it, honorable member? Hamisa, you are quiet today, honorable member. I'm not sure if we are leaving you behind. Endinako, click on Jesus. I'm not sure how I'm going to explain to Endinako. Endinako, click on yes. If that happens, leave and then come back. Guys, did you understand? Endinako, you just click on a button which says mute. It says tap to unmute, I think. Yes, it has to say tap to. Kujotobejan, you tell me, honorable member, did you understand what was explained there?
Yes, I did understand.
But is it everyone who understood? Let me check. Minentle, are you sure you understood there? Minentle Mini 963. Minentle, did you understand there?
No, say no.
Sure. Minentle did not understand what happened there. Okay. As a self, what do they call it? Self dialogue or no? Self whatever. Oh, monologue. Okay. So I'm just going to quickly explain. Maybe I'll try to give a different example there. Let's say you are having that, and then from there you are having a straight line there, but not a monologue. Minentle, let's try to speak, honorable member. Let's say this is the graph of F, and then this is G. Unmute your
Say
mic,
it.
Minentle.
Say it's blurry on my side.
It's blurry on a side. Okay, Minentle, quickly try to leave and then join again. Is it blurry to everyone? Minentle, I think it's fine. You can mute your mic, but just leave and then rejoin if it's blurry. I'll need to try. Tuli, can we try to speak, honorable member? Can we speak the Tulis? Are you still there?
Yes,
Okay, can we speak?
I can't see. The screen is black.
Okay, maybe I'm the one who need to quickly leave and then come back. Not to leave, but to do this. How about now? Is it still blurry? Remember, guys, in case if it's blurry, let me know immediately, because it's recording and one day you're going to catch up. So you want to be able to see.
Black.
Is it still blurry?
Yes,
Yes,
say it's still blurry.
Okay, guys, don't run away. I'm going to leave and then I'll be back. It's 11 of I'm not sure if it's still blurry. How is it now, honorable members?
It's fine, sir.
Okay. So can we speak truly? Can you unmute your mic so that we speak? I think Minentle will be listening. Truly is gone. Okay. This is what happens. Minentle. So we are saying uh, how can you shift this straight line such that it will never touch that graph of f, because at where that line is equals to 4, that's where it touches that function at that point. So the question is, how are you going to shift it? Minentle, you can also give it a try. Are you going to shift it upwards or downwards?
Upwards, sir. I think it's upwards.
Not to touch this one.
Sir, you are breaking. I can't hear you.
Meaning is not there. I'm not sure if meaning is still there. One for sure, if you don't want the straight foot that that I agree this equals 4, you need to you need how about now? Am I still breaking? And is it still blurry there?
I can now see, and you are
Okay.
audible.
Okay, so I was just saying, we do agree that for us to move this such that it will never touch that, that's if we move it in the upward direction. So I notice the problem is not you not understanding that, but is you not knowing how to mathematically represent that. So that's where an inequality comes to play. So if you are saying that's when you shift it upwards. So it's more like you're saying whatever y value, as long as it is bigger than 4, this will never touch that. So that's how you mathematically represent it, to say you can't say y is equals to 6. It's more like you are discriminating other numbers. That is why for you not to discriminate any, don't specify to say at where y is equals to 6, even though you are correct, but it's not only at where y is equals to 6, but that is where y it is just greater than 4. As long as it's greater than 4, this will never touch that. I'm not sure, Minentle, if it makes sense, because the same explanation goes there. The only difference is that this thing, it is now at an angle. So can you see, the moment you start shifting it upwards, it will never touch that. So the trick is you comment on this y value where it touches that. So if this at that point where it touches the y, if it was 8, you're going to say where y is greater than 8. If there it was 3, you're going to say where y is greater than 3. I'm not sure if it makes some sense nyana there before
So
I
it is
run.
clear now.
Okay, I'm pretty much sure that most of you guys did manage to learn something out of that. This is where we give Mzozozo an opportunity to allow me to run away. Mzozozo, do you allow me to sign out, honorable member? Or we are
Yes,
cross-night? What do you? Hayi, nimzwile bantu bakithi, nimzwile. You guys
Before
are
you
in
sign off, I
grade.
have a question.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask that if our if our graph of g of x there was on the other side, which was crossing from the third quadrant to the
Mm-hmm.
first quadrant,
Mm-hmm.
and we had that the very same question, so it would be the opposite.
Oh no. Not the opposite. You still put a line there to say, is it when I move it downwards or upwards where it will never touch that? That was a very good question. But you answer it. Is it when you move it or shift it upwards or downwards where it will never touch that?
Shift it upwards.
Yes, 100%. So that means you're going to say y. That's where y value is greater than whatever that y value it cuts there. If it cuts it at 9, then you're going to just leave it at that. But remember, you don't say y in this case. You say d, because if you remember, the question said determine the value of d. But d, it actually refers to that y cut there. And if you remember, Moleboge said D, the vertical shift. She confidently said that because she realized they are saying k of x, which is equals to negative x plus d. And if you remember, I said this one, it tells us more about the vertical shift. Vertical shift means up or down. So that means we talk about the up and down movement. So you ask yourself, in that case, is it up or down where it will never touch that? Then you realize it's actually when it shifts upwards. So that is why you comment on that value, because this straight line, it was actually cutting through the origin, and then it shifted by 5 units to get to there. So that means if you further shift it by any value above 5, then you are actually shifting it away from that, and therefore it will never touch.
Yes, yes.
Make sense,
Thank you, sir.
the Makwazis?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So you do allow me to sign out, Moskwazi.
Yes, sir. And answer.
Okay, guys, I was about to say you guys are in grade 12, so there's no time to sleep. You will sleep next year in January. That's when you will sleep nicely. But from now on until end of the year, no time to sleep. When you sleep, just make sure that half of your brain is sleeping, and then the other one is busy studying. Moleboge, make sure that one eye is sleeping and the other one is busy thinking. Even the brain, same thing. The
I'll
other
try.
one thinking, and then maybe at 2, the other side can sleep, but the other one, it needs to be very much busy. But guys, I'm running away. I sign out. My name is Desmond, and I'm out.